Go. Good morning, everybody. This is Sheldon Ladd, and you're listening to Coffee Weekly Podcast. And I'm here with
Hendrik and
Otto. Woo!
Woo!
yeah,
What's up?
just the two of us today. And today we're going to be talking about quiet quitting, a term that has been quite a buzzy term lately. And first of all, I want to ask you guys: have you heard this term before, and do you know what it is?
I mean, I've heard it from you before, Sheldon, but actually, no, I haven't heard about it
Otto?
so far.
Cool. And what
So I
about
have,
you,
but
Henry?
yes. Thank you. So yeah, I have read a little bit on it, but I'm not an expert, let's say it like that.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, so to get it started, let me do a quick introduction. I haven't read a lot about it, but basically quiet quitting is, so there is a lot of perspectives, and everybody that explains quiet quitting, you can see where they're coming from. So basically an employee would say that quiet quitting is basically just setting boundaries to your work. And I think that to understand this, I think especially for us that we work in Europe, we need to understand how the US corporate world works. And basically they have this hustle culture. They want to work more than they are supposed to, maybe because they want to get a raise or they want to show off to their managers or something like this. But basically, and I also don't have a lot of context, although I work for the past 4 years, I've been working for an American companies. What I do know is that sometimes people tend to work overtime or work on the weekends a little bit, but maybe I am a little bit biased because I haven't literally like worked in the US. But what people are doing right now, and this started basically with the pandemic, people working from home, they started like maybe more or less their lives are more slower, let's say, because like they're working from home, they're spending more time with family, etc. They realize that this has a lot of benefits on their minds. So now they're like, they want to just work the 8 hours they are supposed to. They want to have their weekends and not work on the weekends like they're supposed to. And on the Fridays, they want to work a little bit less or have a less stressful day on the Friday, so that they can enjoy more the weekend and recharge better for Mondays. So from my perspective, quiet quitting is just basically working regularly and not working for free, because your contract says that you should work X amount of hours. So you should fit in your work inside of those hours. And if you're working extra time, you should be compensated for that. So for me, quiet quitting is this. Do you guys have an opinion or something, or does this bring some ideas about the topic?
I failed with the mute button. Let me go ahead. So thanks for the introduction, Sheldon. Yes, so I can double on that. I think quiet quitting is like basically the counter movement to the hustle culture, where you try to do as much as you can. And with quiet quitting, it's more like, okay, probably this kind of, with loud quitting would be, okay, I canceled my contract and now I just do what's needed because like I'm done with this company anyways. And quiet quitting is like, okay, I don't cancel my contract, but I anyways just do as much as needed to survive. At least that's how I understand it. And personally, I totally agree with that. So let me start off, or before I pass the microphone to Otto, like when there is like the studies where people ask old people who gonna die soon, like they know I have a few days left or a few weeks. And basically, a lot of the regrets were not like, I wish I would have worked harder. People would say like, more when they are dying, looking back on their life, they would say like, okay, I wish I would have taken life easier. I wish I wouldn't have worked so much, but taking more care of my family. And I think that's something that is very positive about our generation X, Y, and Z, all included, that we are very conscious about this topic.
I would say this topic resonates, maybe not even in US culture, but I would say all over the world. I mean, I can speak for German culture where I started working. And I mean, the way I understand quiet quitting is, as you explained, setting boundaries. So meaning that maybe what people had the chance to, or they got this wake-up call from working from home, that the work terms, maybe they are flexible. They are not as set in stone. You have to be there in this, and there's no way you can work from home because we've always been doing this, and this is what everyone else does. And if you work from home, you're not productive, and that's not good for the company, blah, blah, blah. And I think we've all heard stories before, or we know someone who does. And I mean, it's I would say not only restricted to the US. And I mean, the way I see it is, we live pretty much in a capitalistic society, meaning that the currency and the concept we touch on mostly every single day with most of our actions is money in that sense. And the legal system says, okay, we can have some corporations and they have the obligation to increase the shareholder value. And based on all these systemic factors, what happens is that, of course, you have scale effects, companies get bigger, and they can choose, okay, I can squeeze out my employees, I can just maximize, take as much time and value from them and pay them as little as possible, which realistically will be the best capitalistic approach for a company. But maybe what is happening now, that society, that if you keep doing this across many sectors, many countries, many, if you switch companies and it's the same, people realize that, hey, this is not cool. I mean, I don't get what I should be promised. If I work my time and not getting properly compensated for that, this is not how the system is intended to work. And maybe now with Corona what happened during the pandemic was that people realized there is flexibility, which means that they realize, okay, there's a pushback, and maybe the companies or the HR in that sense, or people who, I don't know, bring forward the company culture, maybe they now get a pushback. So I think it's a very healthy movement that people also realize if they say something, maybe alone it's hard to make a change. But if your colleagues say something, if the other team says something, and other companies does make a change, you can refer to that. You have a chance to actually make a change. So much on the general movement, but I think it's something that was just waiting to be happening, the way that I understand it.
Yeah, I see as well. And what I'm about to say is just my opinions. It's not like it's just literally my opinions, but basically what I see is that sometimes I think that the US has a lot of fear from I don't know, communist ideas. I don't know, because like when you say like means of production or something, people already think about Karl Marx and the Capital. I haven't read the book, but that's what I feel like people think. And when you think about means of production, you think like the Industrial Revolution, where people were working like 18 hours a day. And then there was this movement, I think in the US actually, where they created this 8 hours of leisure, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours of work. And this is basically why we work 8 hours per day to this day, like most of the people. But the thing is that technology is advancing. We are automating things. Like, for example, let's talk about our work. I remember when I started working as a developer, we have a tester that would manually click buttons every time that I pushed new functionality to the software. And nowadays, like the testers, they write code like us, and the automation is like for example, the pipeline that takes an hour to run would take days for a person to click buttons. So we are decreasing the amount of human labor in terms of hours. So why we are not decreasing the amount of working hours? And I think that starting by just working the hours that you are supposed to is a good thing to do. So I don't have a lot of I don't feel like this is a bad movement. But again, I'm not a entrepreneur, so I don't know if this is gonna be affecting the corporate world in a general sense. But if it does, I think this is a good movement because we need to think about like we cannot just squeeze out people. There has to be other ways of doing it, and technology is showing us that there is other ways of doing it. So I think that's where I land on this subject.
I would say it's a
Yeah.
bit, if I can continue
Please.
that, it might be a bit cynical to say, but if we take Amazon, for example, where Sheldon and me were working, the sad truth is that a company can choose to say, okay, I'm going to hire people, I'm going to squeeze them out, and if they burn out, we're going to hire the next people. Basically, my story, that's why I left. But it's more a question like, if many companies do it, and then there's one company that doesn't do it, then people will naturally tend to go to that company, because maybe they will get less monetary compensation, but you will get a life. I mean, you will have a purpose to spend your money. And it is just the reality that a corporation can decide to not be very nice in that sense. And that is probably what has been happening all the time. And maybe it has been happening too much. So they crossed the boundary. And now people are saying, like, what the fuck? No, like, no, I'm not going to work like overtime if I can just go to another company. Maybe the situation has flipped so that more employees are on the better side of negotiating now. They can say, well, you know what? If you don't, give us what we ask for, I'm just going to change companies. And maybe that wasn't the case before. There's like many factors that contribute to this, but that's my assumption.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. I think the environment changed. So I think back in the days, like we had people had trouble to find a job, starting with the Industrial Revolution. And it meant an upgrade of their life, like a steady income, not being like dependent on seasonal harvests and how the year was. It means like, okay, I get my paycheck and my safety every year. And yes, economy still had to grow up, and there were a lot of easy tasks. So this is where Sheldon comes in, like with automation. Like a lot of tasks and works that we have to solve now, they require a lot of knowledge. That's why skilled workers are so important and then so high demand. And yeah, like since this kind of skill set is needed so much, the market power just shifted. So I think it's like the first time since forever that employees have so much power, and we can really feel it in the job market. And companies who don't accept that change of nature on the job market, they will just not find any more talent. They will fail in hiring. So it's actually interesting to see what kind of measurements companies take to still attract talent. Like 32-hour work week is a big thing going on. There is active sourcing going on a lot. There is different benefits. And let me tell you, like if someone says like, hey, we have like company days and like we have a basket of fruit, that's not a benefit that's gonna bring the best people into your company anymore. Like times have changed.
But that's good to realize that people have higher standards, that maybe they don't have to, I just do everything so I can work for you. Even if you treat me like shit, I will keep working for you. Maybe that has been the case before. People are in bad economic situations. I mean, there will still be a percentage of people these days, and probably always, that have the bad luck of being in that situation. But maybe it's a good thing that there's a shift happening, and that's something that people deserve, I think. And also, my opinion on this whole thing is that, I'm very biased, and fun fact, I'm also sitting right now in the office where I'm working at, but my employer, I'm a contractor, but I work for Spotify right now, and it is a US-based, okay, they were started, their headquarters is in Stockholm, so maybe they're not really a US-based company in that sense, but they act on a global scale. And they pretty much like manifest what I think companies should be doing for a long time. So for me, the shift between going from Amazon to Spotify was very, very high contrast, because Amazon was more like, I understand why they make so much money. I understand why the stocks are worth so much. I understand why Jeff Bezos is or was the richest man in the world, because they really understand capitalism. Produce the highest value for the customers, so they, are willing to pay for the lowest price possible, which maybe is cool because you get your parcels delivered very quick. But anyone working in service, or even the people working in IT, this can sometimes just be an absolute nightmare, because you're just a wheel in the system. You're just performing your work as good as possible. But frankly speaking, nobody cares about you. If I left, there's just the next person being hired. And that's, economically maybe viable, but not really personally. Whereas when I came to Spotify, I was also saying, okay, I don't want to work full time. I just know that I have the privilege to work in IT, that I can ask for that. I can say, hey, I would prefer to work 4 days a week. And there's still companies that would say, okay, we would like to work you a bit more, but we accept that you work less. And what they did last year, and they also repeated this year, or will repeat this year, is something called a wellness week, where they announced to every employee and every consultant, even in the company, saying, so there's this pandemic going on, and some people like working from home, some people don't like it, or they have children at home. It's a very catastrophe. And just overall, we realized that, it's a hard time. It's not the easiest setting. It was nicer before to meet people in the office, to socialize, to have a routine that we kind of lost. And we can see how some progress has been stuck. So we give every person at Spotify, including consultants, 1 paid vacation for free. And you're not supposed to work. Don't open your emails. Don't do anything. And that for me was like a change I haven't seen at any company before, where they actively embrace that, personal well-being, is very important. And I don't want to advertise, but I'm just saying that this is something I haven't seen before. Maybe it's a shift in the market. And that is something that maybe also is part of this quiet quitting movement, but not from the employee side, but from the employers. Because now as a reaction, now I know this company thinks about my well-being, and I'm much, 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 much more happy and willing to stay at this company. So much that it's the first company I don't have the urge to kind of leave. I'm just like, it's cool here. They respect our boundaries. They respect that we're humans. And if we don't deliver something on time, it's fine. The world's not going to end, So just wanted to share that there is change happening.
Yeah, definitely. I can see some companies like offering unlimited vacations, which is something for another topic, because this can be controversial. Like companies are not working on Fridays and stuff like that. But I want to say, first of all, so I have 2 closing thoughts. So the first one is, there is, of course, like different types of professions, or maybe, I don't know, job versus profession. For example, let me give a few examples. Like if you're a barista, you go there to the coffee shop and you make coffee, and that's pretty much it. And you go home, and maybe you go home and learn a new way of doing coffee, but basically like your work is very well set. So if you work extra hours, it means that you're literally just putting more production, so you should receive more. Like maybe the coffee is busy, and then you close the coffee shop later. Like you should be compensated for these extra hours. For a programmer, like a developer, for example, or a talented worker, I don't want to use the word talented worker, because a barista is also a talented person, but like a developer has like a lot of cognitive stress, because there's a lot of things that you have to like dedicate energy on, or mental energy to produce stuff. And then you go home and you have to learn new ways of doing your job, because technology is always changing. So it's like also like you're soft working when you're not working, because you have to learn more stuff, so then you can apply to your job. And then for this one, I think it's a little bit of a gray area as well. So the working hours, it's not like crystal clear, like a barista, for example. You go there and you make coffee and you go home. And then there's like people like a CEO or a evangelist. This person, or like every high person on the company, they represent the company. So Jeff Bezos, he's always on the clock, because every time that the person sees him, he's the Amazon guy. He's gonna be always, he stepped down as a CEO, but people still refer to him as a CEO. So like this guy is gonna be always on the clock. And the same for a developer evangelist. Like if I start giving talks about some technology, and a person sees me on the bus, they will very likely come to me and say, hi, I watched your talk. Can you chat with me a little bit about this or that? And then you're working again. So I think it's hard to draw the lines there. And lastly, there's also job versus career. So for example, I try to manage my career and try to always think mid and long term. And I see, for example, on my 20s, I'm 31 now. So on my 20s, I was working extra hours pretty much every job because I want to grow. I don't want, like, of course, the company benefited from that, but I want to grow as a developer, as a software engineer. And now I'm growing on a more steady way, let's say. Let's say, for example, physics. The car is stopped and then you accelerate, you're gonna spend more gasoline. But when you are on a steady speed, you spend less gasoline. So I'm still like progressing, but maybe a little bit less because I'm already on a comfortable position in my career. So now I have the benefit of working less hours and not studying as much as I was. So I think there's a little bit of that as well when it comes to quiet quitting. Yeah, and those are my two closing thoughts. So if you're thinking that you're working too much and you deserve a quiet quitting, I think you can not only join the movement, but also make a strategy so that you don't depend on the quiet quitting movement. You can manage your career so that on the beginning you work a lot and then later you work less. And this goes as well to changing companies. So at the first few months in the company, I would work a little bit more just to understand the company better. Not too much as well, because if you, like, for example, the onboarding process, you have a lot of videos to watch. Don't do this on your free time. Like, try to fit in on your work. But for example, you're changing companies and technologies. I would spend extra time learning the technology because these I will bring to my life. But the onboarding videos or stuff like that, this is company stuff. So I would spend company time on that. And those are my closing thoughts. Hendrik, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I have a lot to say. Thanks so much for sharing, Sheldon. First of all, let me start with unpaid vacation. Actually, I would be interested because I'm personally a person who doesn't give a shit if I would also be like, okay, I take less vacation than intended, or if I would just abuse the system and I'm like literally only every second day in the office or whatever. But maybe that's also tied with the American work system where you can fire people a lot more quickly than in Germany. So basically it's very nearly impossible in Germany to fire someone. But in America, I think you can leave the company tomorrow if your manager wants to. But yeah, that's a topic for another day. Also, with the quiet quitting, I think one big factor is why like when managers expect employees to give their very best, they often don't have a reason. Like managers or owners of a company, they get stock value, they get direct equity in the company and stuff like that. But if I'm just an employee, I get my salary every month, no matter what I'm doing. And I think this is a big problem that a lot of people don't see. Like, why should I work my ass off for your personal yacht, for your like big house, whatever? Like, give me something in return, like make me win also, then like maybe like give me real stock. And I'm not even talking about virtual stock, like give me real stock options that stay when I leave the company or whatever, like, or whatever works for the situation. So I'm making some stuff generalized here and I may be over exaggerating, I know. But yeah, I think that's a part people don't see a lot. And I can actually just double on what you said. Keep investing in yourself because this will get you in a more comfortable position. So like the more value you can bring and the more knowledge you have, the more skills you have that are important to your business partner, the more comfortable it will be for you. And yeah, that's why I think always keeping investing in yourself is super important. Thanks.
I can continue that train of thought. So when I see, I mean, individuals across multiple fields, so of course there's always a bias. I mean, I'm very, very biased because I have the privilege to work in IT where the market is very much in favor for employees. So for the same, let's say, amount of work that you do, you get compensated orders of magnitude more than other jobs. So when I compare myself to anyone as a waitress or a builder or someone in education or social work, I mean, I can be honest, the stress that I put on myself to work is maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 3% of that someone working in a restaurant, in a coffee shop, and as a teacher or something, because yeah, so this is like one of the difference that we have to take into account. But my view of things is nonetheless that if someone is willing to grow your career. So you want, for example, you want to have a higher salary, or you want to have better working conditions, or you want to grow within your role. So maybe you want to have a team, you want to decide more for the company, maybe you want to be part of the company shareholders or something. My take would be, there's nothing wrong with putting in a lot of work. If you feel it, if you have the time to, if it's fun for you, you should be doing it. But my concern is more that many people focus primarily on the environment they are in. So I started at company XYZ because they gave me a job after when I was studying. Okay, good start. But if you're at this company for 1, 2, 3 years and you keep grinding and working hard over time, and you maybe get a promotion, you get a bit more money and everything, but it can be, and most of the time it will be, that no matter what you do, you will be capped at a certain point, and your growth rate, it will just be a little bit, but you cannot really make a jump. So my advice would be, if you have the energy and the will or the need to increase your own, let it be financial situation, work situation, life situation, it is a good factor to think outside of your environment. So think of other companies, talk to friends and colleagues, look online, look at videos or anything. There's a very, very high chance that you just don't happen to be in the right environment. There's maybe another company that they really want to hire you because they see you've done this before. And maybe you don't think it's important, but maybe for them, it's like exactly what they need. And they will just because of you joining, you will get maybe a pay raise, and you will get, more relaxed working times. It can also happen you join another company and it's really shit. You never ever know. But what I'm saying is that by giving your environment also a chance to change, the possibility that you will end up in a better situation will largely increase. So in that sense, maybe that's what people have been doing, quite quitting. They're like, you know what? I know there's better options out there. Try me, bitch. No, more like, I will not like sacrifice my own well-being for a company that is just numbers and money. There's no point really. Like you don't have to die to come to the conclusion that the highest valuable thing you have is your time. It's really the only thing everyone has. Everyone's day, not talking about time zones, but it's 24 hours. So this is what you can work with, and this is what you should work with, and you should value it as high as possible. And no matter what your manager says, no matter what your parents or your colleague says, have a look around, and there's probably a good place for you. That's my closing words, some motivational speech as always. And that kind of concludes our round, I would say.
Yeah, I just want to say something before we finish. So there's like peak performance and steady performance. So I think that like people, you should reserve peak performance for where it's needed. Like, I don't know, you work on an e-commerce and then it's Black Friday. You should be working a little bit extra because like it's gonna be a peak time during this period. But it's like in the middle of August, you have nothing to do. There's no like campaign or something. You shouldn't be working extra time because like things are more steady. And another analogy is like when you're driving on a motor road, and you should be kept like a steady speed. But if you want to overtake someone, then you accelerate a little bit more, but just that time. Like you just when you finish, you come back to your normal speed.
Yeah. Actually, I also wanna say that like you shouldn't be lazy. Like you should work comfortable for yourself. I think that's what's important. Sometimes there is more stress, but then also take care of yourself that you get relaxed. I think that's what it's all about. Take care of yourself. And I also wanted to like double on Sheldon, like with the daily learning, just having fun, improving yourself, like having a ritual of 10 or 20 minutes of just something you enjoy at work. It's gonna improve your life so much. And thanks.
Great. That's it, I would say.
Yeah, that's been fun, and thanks for sharing
later,
your
guys.
opinions. Please, everyone that is watching, leave a comment. What do you think about this movement? We are interested to hear more thoughts about it, especially me. And see you next week. Bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.